Every year, my wife and I like to go and see the bluebells in the woods, and they're all around where we live actually. There's quite a few woodlands. But have you ever thought what's really going on as you see this sight, this beautiful sight? So I thought I'd best tell you a little bit about it. Well, first of all, a woodland that supports bluebells has usually been managed, and you can tell that it's been managed by in this particular case there's no scrub on the floor, and the trees are standing apart really, aren't they? There's no trees in close proximity to one another, they're all distanced between them. And the reason for that is that bluebells need the light to flower before the leaves get on the trees. Without that, they couldn't survive. So the other thing is that the bluebells have to come up early, just for in case of, as an example, leaves start coming early one year, then the bluebells would have to come before that, and it's all down to the light. But so how do they do it? Well, when they're bulbous and when they've flowered, they take on energy stored in the bulb, and when the conditions are right the following year, the bulb starts to burst open, and it uses its energy, and the bluebells eventually appear. It sounds simple, doesn't it, when you think about it? It is really. I suppose most of you know that anyway. But I thought what I'd try to do today is to talk a little bit about woodlands, because they're not, we take them for granted, but they're such an essential part of our day-to-day living, and certainly have been in the past, particularly when coal wasn't achievable. So I thought I'd do a little bit of research for you and then talk about it. So let's see how we go on. So here you can see that you're looking at a bit of ancient woodland, and ancient woodland, after I've just researched, can be categorised as being as 1700s. There's a lot more information about woodlands that I couldn't get for you, but I've decided to cut it fairly short today. If I don't, you'll probably get bogged down by it all. But you can see this particular tree has been growing, and it's on an embankment, and over the years the soil has eroded away, but it's still clinging on, and I'm assured that it's quite safe. And I can tell you that because it's in an area which is close to a public footpath, and it's sometimes my wife and I go there quite a lot actually, but I've not been and seen this particular tree for about a year. Well, no, since lockdown, May 2020. And it was alright then. I'm wondering, because there's been quite a lot of rain since we last went there. There's been thunderstorms and lightning storms. And when you think about a tree like this, how does it survive through all those traumatic environmental disasters that goes on when it's, 100 years of age? It's incredible, isn't it, how it grows like that. Now, this particular woodland area, it looks nice, doesn't it? Not much bird life in there, apart from you get some woodpeckers that's going up back and forth in straight lines when they're courting. Looking for dead trees where they can hammer away and make a lot of noise to attract a mate. But I find a walk like in a wood like this wonderful when it's very hot in the summer. And I'm struggling for words. But what is it that's different to the woodland we've seen in the other clips? And that is that these trees have been left to grow. They've been put in as saplings close together, and they've been left to grow close together. And the reason for that is that if a tree is planted in close proximity to another tree, it will tend to grow straight rather than in a deformed way. A tree will grow in a deformed way if it's got wind around it or something like that, or if wind's coming in one direction all the time, it'll grow deformed. But these you can see are straight, and these were originally planted for props to put in the shafts down the pits, called pit props, of course. But that gives you another idea of what to look for when you're down in the woodland areas. So that's 3 things, isn't it, so far? Well, as you can see, that this area of this particular woodland, and it bears out what I've just said. You can see the trees are standing and they're straight, and the ones that's been cut off are fairly straight too, aren't they? So this particular woodland is managed, and most are actually. We just don't know that. But you can see that the timbers are ready to be taken away. Now, if you see timbers like that, please keep away from them. They can fall down in the piles, and you can do some serious damage. If one of those drops on you or rolls on you, it could easily break a few ribs and whatever. So please keep your distance when you see anything like that. You can also see that the logs themselves need to take up a lot of room, and probably machinery's been down the side of that. So it's quite a big operation going on there. It's not taking a few logs, it's taking lots of logs. And this particular area, I do believe, is restocked with saplings. Every time they take something down, they put new saplings in, and actually that's what woodland does. If you leave it to its own devices, it will die off. The wood will die off and replenish itself, and I'll show you that in the next clip. This piece of wood was a tree, of course. Sorry to sound patronising, but it's not always distinguishable that it was at one point a large tree. And I did witness this tree dying off, and also I did witness it being used by woodpeckers to drill holes in to make sounds, as I mentioned earlier, to attract a mate. But the idea is that once a tree falls like that, it attracts all sorts of ground covering things, beetles and what other, and they live off it. And wood lice is an example. I don't know how long they'll be able to live off that, but I suppose they'll be able to live off it for a long time. And then eventually it goes back into it's all taken back into the ground again. So there's like a regulation on there, isn't there, where it clears itself up, a woodland. And it's all a matter of attracting the right things to the wood to do this clearing up. I suppose it's nature just moving in, isn't it, and doing its thing. But anyway, I thought I'd show you that because it, as I said earlier, it's something I've witnessed myself from start to finish. And it finished up like that, of course. And here's an example of a tree that's been in the winds at some point, but when you look round, you say to yourself, well, look as though it's in winds now. And that's because over the time that it's been deforming, growing deformed like that, the other trees around it have died off. Now I suspect also that the woodsmen leave this tree because it's not much use to anybody other than animals and birds and animals, yeah, because you've got squirrels in this particular wood, grey squirrels, not red ones, and you know it gives you a good idea of what I've just been talking about. On this particular clip, you can see that the tree's been chopped down and they've left the stump behind. And sometimes, well, you can see the tree behind it, can't you? And sometimes you'd probably think, oh, I wonder if they're going to come back and dig that out. Well, if they leave the tree like that, it will start sprouting out again. And it's called coppicing, as many of you all know. Coppicing, the wood grows very, very quickly. It might be spindly, but not as, probably not grow to that width that you see there. But it's good firewood. And that's what it was used for in the years gone by. For coppicing, for stuff like that. And all sorts of other things, I suspect, for um, helping to lay thatch on and stuff like that. And if I can remember, at some point I'll do thatching, and I'll also do one of the things I really would like to know. What I like about is coracles. I would have loved to have made a coracle and gone on the watering one. But anyway, sticking to woodland, wood makes all sorts of things, doesn't it? And I'll move on to the next clip, I think. I think in this case everybody would know that this looks like a dead tree. But if you were working as a woodsman in years gone by and you've got to use one of those large saws where two people are pulling at it, this looks as though it could be hardwood, and it would be extremely difficult to cut it down. So you'd leave it, and probably that's what's happened. In today's woodland, where it's managed by men with electric saws, etc., they'll probably pull it down. But I can't see that they'll find any use for it. It's too spindly, if I'm honest with you. And leaving it to go back to the earth, as we've mentioned earlier, might be a good option. Now sometimes you get a tree like that which might start growing again, and if you look closely at the bottom, there's something else growing up it which might be ivy. Now ivy is a wonderful plant for birds, particularly in the winter, because they're covered in all sorts of things go into hiving and wait the time out until the autumn comes and spring comes again. So that's something else to, if you look at, if you go close up to these trees and have a look, and you'll see that there's an hole in this one. Now, there might be an owl in there, so please proceed with caution. And if you do see an owl in there, leave it alone, please. Just observe that it is there. Go very quiet and very quiet away. As if it's an owl, it'll be asleep in the daytime. That's something else to look out for. So if you're walking in a woodland area and you're trying to determine whether it's ancient or not, one of the factors that you can look at is look for oak, ash, elm, alder and lime. I suppose they're all slow growing, aren't they? I know oak's a slow grower. So if you've got oak in there and it's a big oak, you know that it's quite a substantially old area for woodland. And there's all sorts of things about woodland history-wise that I can go into later if you're interested. Please let me know if these things interest you. If they don't, I'll not do it anymore. But I suppose we also should be looking at what to look for when you're in the woodland, how to get out. Well, one of the I don't honestly know my left from my right, but when I'm in a woodland, I've only once ever been lost in 50 years, and that was in the fog, and I hadn't a clue where I was. So I sat it out until the fog lifted, and then off I went on my way. But of course we've all got mobiles now, so that helps. So what did I do? When I was walking into the wood, I was walking downhill. So I assumed straight away when I turned around, I'm going to be walking uphill when I go back. That's an obvious thing, isn't it? Now the other obvious one is if you're in a car and you are in a strange area and you're going to walk into an area of woodland you've never been in before, is walk away from your car a few steps so that and take a compass out of your pocket and you walk away a few steps so that the compass is not affected by the metal on the car. You point the compass to the car and you make a reading, and wherever you are, use that reading to come back to your car. It will take you straight back to your car, and that's how you do it. And the other thing is, if you are getting tired in a woodland and you decide you are going to take a shortcut across land that's uneven and you've got trees down on the floor, potholes to contend with, you're looking into an area then where you could cause yourself harm, and it'll probably take you twice as long to get back through the wood as it would if you stuck to the public footpaths. So please stick to the public footpaths, not just for because that's probably the best way to walk, but for your own safety as well. You go for the public footpaths, you fall down and no one will know that you're there, other than having your mobile on. But if you stick to the public footpath, somebody will probably come and find you at some point, because there's people walking in the wood all the time. So that's just a thing to consider. Please stick to the footpaths. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there now for today, but as I say, if you find that these things are of any interest to you, please let me know, and I'll do some more. Bye.